So to get started, I've made a pattern and this is available on my blog. I will link that below, so if you want to go and grab that, you can do. Because of how the pattern is made, where it goes up to the peaks at the top and down at the bottom, I'm going to start my beading right in the middle, and we're going to bead the first half and then we'll come back and do the second half, and that's because it's just easier to increase and then to work our way back up to the top. I've got my needle and thread and I'm using size 11 Delica for this pattern. So to start our Peyote Snowflake, I've picked up the first 2 rows of beading. So that's 1 silver, I've then got 4 of my dark blue, I've got a white, then another dark blue, a white, 4 more dark blue and a silver. And this pattern is completely symmetrical, so whatever you have on one half of your needle, you're going to have to pick up for the second half as well. And I'm going to take this down my thread and I'm going to stop at halfway so that I can leave some thread to go back and bead the second half. So we're starting our next row with a silver bead, and we're going to take our needle straight into the first dark blue on the thread and pull through. Your new silver bead might need a little bit of persuasion, but it needs to be sitting directly on top of the one on the previous row. And now you're going to pick up a white bead and we're going to miss a bead out and take our needle into the third blue bead along and pull through. And if you're familiar with peyote, you'll know how this works. There we go. Now we need to pick up another white, and this is all white all the way along until we reach the silver on the other side. So I'm just going to jump over the blue bead, the fourth blue bead in and into the white bead and pull through. There we go. We're starting to get that sort of pattern there where you can just slot beads in. There we go, there's another white bead. We're going to jump over the blue and into the white. I always think the hardest part of peyote is starting it and just getting these first few rows added. I've now picked up another white. I'm going to go into the blue bead, missing the one out, and pull through. I have to take my bead stopper off in a minute because it's getting in the way. I'll do that now. And now I'm going in with another white bead and I'm going to jump over the blue and into the sort of the last blue on that row. And the last bead in that row is a silver, and we need to get it so it's sitting on top of the other one. So I'm just going to make sure it's sitting up near the beading because that one wants to keep sliding around. I'm going to take my needle down into that silver bead and pull through. Again, it might need a little bit of persuasion to sit on top of it like that, but it shouldn't take too much work. There we go, and now we're ready to move on. So now we need to turn our needle and thread around so we can start building up off the row that we've just added. So I'm going to take my needle into the dark blue and down to the dark blue at the bottom of that first row. Just move my thread so you can see down there and pull through. And now I'm going to take my needle up to the white and pull through. I'm then going to go back through that blue that's near the end of my row and pull. And because we're going to increase the row now, instead of sort of coming back in towards the beadwork, I'm just going to go out sort of to the outer edge by going through the silver on the top, and that's the silver that we've just added on the new row. So to start the next row, we're going to pick up 1 silver bead, and this is going to be sitting off to the edge to increase that bead row. So I'm just going to take my needle back through that silver and pull, and you can just see it's added it on. It might be sitting at a slightly funny angle, but as we add more beading it will sit absolutely fine. So now I'm going to go in with a blue bead and pull through. And then we have a white bead and pull. And then another blue bead. I'm going to take that through. And then another blue bead through there. You have another white bead to add and pull through. And then we're going in with another blue. I'm going to go into that silver like that. And now we need to finish our row with another silver that's going to sit off to the side just like this one. So I'm going to pick up my silver bead like that and take it down my thread, and I'm just going to go back into the silver that we've just exited from and pull through. That sort of added it off to the side. Like I say, when we add more beading it's going to sit an awful lot better. And now we need to turn around so we can start the next row. So I'm just going to go down into or across into the blue bead that we've just added. I'm going to take my needle down into the blue at the bottom of the row. This helps turn us around, and just pull. And then I need to work my way up to that silver on the end, like so. There. And I'm going to be moving back in towards the beading on this occasion, so I'm just going to take my needle back into that silver on the end like that, and now we're ready to start another row. So we're going to begin by picking up one blue bead and take our needle into that first blue bead on the row, and then we are moving on to a white bead and pull through like that, and then we're going to add another blue, and this row is alternating blue and white beads all the way along. Like that. We have another white bead, go into that blue and pull, and then we are moving on to a blue bead. I'm going to go straight into that white, and then a white bead, there we go. And then we're going to finish this row with another blue bead. I'm going to go straight into that silver bead that's hanging off the end there and pull. And this will help get that silver bead to sit nicely in position like that. You can just see the start of that snowflake pattern. So now we're picking up a silver bead to start the next row, and we don't need to increase this time, we're just going to add the silver on top of the silver on the previous row. So I'm just going to take my needle straight into my blue bead like that, And then I'm going to add a white bead next, so I'm just going to pick that up and add it in between those two beads there, like so. And we have another white bead. Take the needle into that blue, and now we're on to a blue bead, like that, and take the needle through. And my beads are off to the side because if I bring them in to the sort of into the camera view, my camera tries to focus on them all the time, so can't see what I am doing. So now I'm going to go in and add another blue bead, and just take that into that blue bead there. And now, because it's a mirror image, we're going to go ahead and add 2 more white beads to our row. And there's my second one. There. And now we're going to go in with a silver bead, and we need to add this on top of the bead that's there. So I'm just going to take that down and pull through. Again, give it a little bit of a wiggle if it's not sitting right, and tighten that thread. And now you can see we've added that one on. So now we're ready to move up to the next row, but we need to turn our needle and thread round because we're facing the wrong, or moving in the wrong direction and on the wrong row. So I'm just going to take my needle through the dark blue bead and pull. I am also going to go into the white bead. I'm then going to cut down into the blue just below it, pull through, and we need to be sort of coming back through this way so we can fill in the gaps here. We're not increasing at all. So I'm going to take my needle up into the blue bead that's on to the end of that row again, pull through, and now we can go through the silver bead on the end, like that, and up into the silver bead on the end of the row. There we go, and now we're ready to start again. So we're going to start that row with a blue bead and just go straight into the white bead. Now we're going to go ahead and pick up another blue bead, take our needle into that white, pull, and we're going to add a third blue bead to this row. Go. And now we're going to add 2 white beads. So pick up 1 white bead. I'm going to take the needle into that blue, like that, and we're going to finish off now with 3 more blue beads. There's 1, 2, and 3. There we go, that's what we've got so far. So we're going to move up now to another row, and we have to build a third silver bead on top of the 2 on the edge here that we've already got. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up my silver bead and take my needle straight into the blue bead on the previous row, like that. And now I'm going to add a blue bead. I'm going to take the needle into that next blue bead along. There we go. And now we have another blue bead in there. And now we're moving on to 2 white beads. So I'm just going to take my needle into that white bead and pull. And I'm going to pick up my second white bead and take the needle into the blue bead. My thread's determined to get tangled up today. There we go. And now we're going to finish with 2 more blue beads and the silver on the end of the row. So there's 1 blue bead, and there's my second, and pull. And then there's my third silver bead. Just going to take that down my thread and go down into the silver at the end of the previous row. There we go. Give it a wiggle if it needs some help. There we go. And now we're ready to move on, and we are now sort of working our way in this way. So I'm just going to put the needle and thread in a position where we can carry on, but the beadwork now sort of tapers up to that top point at the top of the snowflake. So to turn around, I'm just taking my needle into the blue bead, sort of at the end of the row, and pull through. And then I'm going to go into the blue at the top, pull. I'm going to go down to the white bead there, pull through, and then we're going to go into the blue at the end, again the same one, so near the top. There we go. And because we are sort of wanting to move back in towards the beadwork, I'm going to go into the silver at the bottom and pull through, and I'm going to go up to the silver at the top. So I'm going to pick up a silver bead and go straight into the blue on the row before. I'm hoping this is clear enough for everyone to see, because it's really dull today and I'm battling with shadow on my sort of beading desk. So there's 1 silver, and we're going to go in with another one, another silver that is, and pull. And then we are going to add a blue bead, pull through. Now we're going to add a white, we're working towards the top of the snowflake with that one there, and now we are on to a blue, pull, and now we're going to finish with 2 silver beads. So there's the first one, and there's the second one. There we go. And now we're ready to move on. So we are going to just take our needle up into the silver, and I'm using a grey thread, so it'll sort of blend in nicely. So now we're going to pick up a silver and take the needle into that silver bead there and pull through. And this is now adding the outline on the sides here. We've still got a little bit more work to do at the top here. And I'm going to add another silver bead. I'm just going to go through that blue. And now we have a blue bead to add. There we go. Take the needle into the white. And we're going to go in with another blue bead. And now we're going to add 2 silver beads. There's one. And there's the second. So we now need to move through the beadwork without adding any beads until we reach this point here, because the silver surrounds the whole shape. So I'm just going to take my needle up into the silver bead at the top. And again, you'll see the thread, but I'm using a grey thread, so you won't really see it. I'm going to go down into the next silver along, and we're not making any new bead paths, we're just using what we've already got, and pull through. And now I can go back up to the top there, and we're ready to start beading. So I've picked up a silver bead and we're just going to go into there at the top, into the blue to the top. We're going to add a white bead and take the needle into that blue and pull through. And now I'm going to finish that really short row with another silver bead and pull through like that. So now we're going to jump up to the top again into that silver bead and pull, and we are going to just add 2 blue beads in this row. So there's my first one, and into that white bead, and there's my second blue bead, and into the silver at the end. There we go. Now we're going to pick up 1 silver bead and we're going to go straight into the blue at the top there. And pull. We are going to go in with a blue bead to sit on top of that white, like that. And now we're going to pick up our silver bead again and take that down. And I'm just going to take my needle into the silver at the bottom and just pull it till it clicks into place. So we need to turn ourselves around again. So I am just going to go into the blue at the end of the row and pull. I'm going to go up to the blue at the top, like so. And then we're going to go back down to that white there and pull. And we're going to go through the blue again at the end of the row, like that. And because we now want to sort of turn around, so we're coming back into the beadwork, so we want to make sure we can just continue beading up this way rather than adding on to the end. We're going to go through the lower silver again, like that, and then we're going to turn around at the top to come inwards, like that. And now we are ready to add another silver bead. So I've picked up my silver, I'm going to go into that blue and pull. I'm going to pick up another silver bead and into the silver at the end. And then I'm going to take my needle up to the top, pull through, just so we can add that little bead at the top there. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick up another silver bead and take my needle straight into the silver on the other side. And that is the first half of our snowflake done. So what I'm going to do now is take the needle off this thread, and I've got a really long sort of tail thread, so to speak, but that's going to bead the second half of my snowflake. So I've got my needle on my sort of tail thread now, and we need to fill in the gaps on this row. So this is at the middle of our shape, but we are sort of sitting in the wrong direction. So I'm just going to take my needle down into the silver bead sort of below where we're exiting, and it's the same sort of turn that we've done before. So I'm going to go now into the blue, sitting just next to those silver beads, and pull through. And now I'm going to take my needle up to the blue at the top and take that through. And this is different to when we started, because obviously when we started we picked up 2 rows to begin with, all at the same time. So we're just, you know, we did this row, the equivalent of this row, in the very first step last time. So that's why we've sort of ended up in this position. I'm going to take my needle up through that white. We're going to go through that blue again that's sitting sort of at the edge of my snowflake. If I can get it. There it is. Take through and pull. I'm now going to take my needle into the silver again, and it's the silver bead, the sort of second one down, and pull through. And I'm going to work my way back into the silver bead at the end of the row so that we're in the right position to continue on. There we go. So the first bead in this row is a blue. I'm just going to add that on. And we're going to follow that with another blue. And then we're going to go on to 2 white beads. So there's 1 white bead. There. And there's my second white bead. Take through. If I can grab the thread. And now we have 2 more blue beads to finish this row. That's the first, and now the second. So to start the next row, I'm going to pick up 1 silver bead, and it's going to sit directly on top of the silver bead at the end of the other row. So I'm just going to take the needle straight into the blue like that, and now we're going to follow up with all white beads all the way across until we reach the silver at the other side. So there's 1, there's a second white bead, and there's a third white bead, and another one, and there's another white bead. I'm going to go into the blue at the end. Have I gone into the silver? I think I have. There we go. Let's go into that blue one like that. And now we're going to pick up our silver bead and take the needle into the silver just below it like that and pull through. We need to get that one to sit on top. There we go. So now to continue with our beading, we need to increase out at the sides here to match this half, and we are facing sort of the wrong way to do that. So I'm just going to turn my needle around. So I'm going to go into that blue bead, facing that direction anyway, so just take your needle in there and pull. And I'm going to take my needle into the white, pull through, and then I'm going to go into the blue underneath the white. Like that, and into that blue again. That's at the top of the beading, and if you can, because we need to add on at the end, go through the silver at the end at the top as well. So don't go to the lower one, you're going to go straight into the top silver bead. There we go. So to start our next row, I've picked up my silver bead. I'm just going to take that down, and I'm going to take my needle back into the silver bead that we have exited from. Pull through. And just give it a wiggle to make sure that it's sitting up at the right angle. I'm going to pick up a blue bead, and we're going to take the needle into the white and pull. And now we're going to follow that with a white bead. Take that through. Now we have 2 blue beads. So there's the first one, and pull through. Like that. And the second bead. There we go. And take through. There we go. And now we have a white bead to add. So there's my bead. It's going to go into that white bead there to add it. Like that. And a blue bead on the end, and straight into the silver bead. Pull through. And now to finish that row, we need our silver bead. So I'm just going to take my needle back into the silver at the end and pull. Now we just need to turn around because we are moving inwards again. We're not going to add anything on for a second. We need to do this row here where we're just filling in the gaps, but we're facing the wrong direction. So I'm just going to go ahead and into that blue bead at the top, and then I'm going to go down to the blue bead at the bottom, and I realise that's sort of just beneath it. I realise it's quite tricky to see because these beads are shiny, but it's just the bead, sort of second one down from the top, and we're going to go back up into the silver at the top, like that. And we're going to go back into the silver that's on the end that we've added, but we're going to loop around so that we're moving back in towards the beadwork. So we're going in from the outer edge of that bead, like that. And now we're ready to continue. So we're starting with a single blue bead. I'm just going to take that into the blue bead on the row below, like that. And now we have a white bead. Take the needle into that white bead as well. There we go. We are now moving on to a blue bead, like that. And we're going to follow that with a white bead. There we go. There we see. I'm going to add a blue bead. And then I'm going to move onto a white bead. And then we're going to finish with a blue bead, like that. And we're going to go into this silver bead on the end here that doesn't want to sit right. Just figure out where that's going. There we go. So I'm going to take my needle through that silver bead there. There we go, and that sort of forces that bead to sit much better now. So we're going to start the next row with a silver bead, and we're facing the right direction, and the silver bead's going to sit directly on top of the one on the end there. So I've got my bead, I'm just going to go through that top blue bead. There we go. I now have 2 white beads to add, so there's my first white and my second white. Just take those through. There we go. And now I have 2 blue beads. So there's one. And 2. Take that through. And now we're going to add 2 more white beads. So there's the first one. And there's the second white bead. It's going to go into that blue on the end. And then we need to add our silver. And we're going to take our needle back into that silver at the end of that row to add that bead on. I don't know why I was making that look so hard, it was actually really easy to get in there. There we go. And pull and get that to sit on top. So we are in the wrong position to continue. We need to now fill in the gaps here. So we need to reposition so that we're moving back in towards the beading on the top row. So I'm just going to take my needle into the next blue there. And I'm going to go up to the white. And down to the blue that's just below it there, but just the blue. I'm trying to get the silk. There we go, it's just the blue there. And now I'm going to go into the blue near the top. I'm going to go into the silver bead that's sort of just below the one we've just added, like that, and pull. And then we're going to go up and into the silver bead, moving back in towards the beading. And now we can finish that row. So the first half of this row are 3 blue beads. So there's 1, then there's my second blue bead, 2, and my third blue bead. There we go. And now we're going to add just 1 white bead in the middle. So I'll take the needle through that blue. And now we're going to match that up by adding another 3 beads, blue beads that is. So there's 1, there's the second one, and my third blue bead. Oops, there we go. And that's finished that row. So to start the next row, I've picked up my silver bead because we're in the right position to continue. So I'm just going to go straight into that blue bead at the top, and this should sit on top of the other silver beads like that. We now have 2 of our blue beads to add, so there's the first one, and there's the second one. I'm going to go straight into that blue bead on the previous row, and now we have 2 white beads to add. So there's my first white bead. So I'm going to go into that white bead in the middle. There's one, and there's my second white bead. Just go into that blue and pull. And now I have 2 blue beads to add again. So there's the first one, and there's the second one, and I'm going to pick up my silver bead to finish this row, and I'm going to take my needle into the silver bead at the end of the row below. There we go, like that. And now we need to move our way back in so we can replicate this top bit here, which sort of tapers into this point at the top. So we need to reposition ourselves so we're ready to move in. I'm just going to take my needle through that blue bead, sort of at the top of the row, and I'm going to go through the blue bead at the top again. I'm going to go down to the white and through. I'm going to go through that blue bead again, sort of at the top, just before those silver beads, if I can get it. There we go. So just take that through. And I'm going to go now through the silver, which is the second silver down, so not the top one, but the second one down. There we go. Make it look really difficult, but actually there's no difficulty getting through those beads at all. And now we're going to go back up through that silver bead in towards the beadwork. And we're ready to continue. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up a silver bead and take the needle straight into the blue on the previous row, like that. There we go. I'm going to pick up another silver bead and move my thread so you can see. I'm going to go into the next bead along on the top there. The next bead in this row is a blue bead. I'm just going to take the needle into that white bead at the top and pull through. Pull your needle, not your thread though. Honestly, I'm all tangled up. There we go. And pull through. And then I'm going to add 1 white bead. Just take the needle through that white bead there. And now I'm going to add another blue bead, like that. There we go. And we are going to finish this row with 2 silver beads. So there's my first silver bead going in. There we go. And my second silver bead. I'm going to go straight into the silver at the end and pull. There we go. And now in order to continue on, we're just going to take our needle straight up into that silver bead at the end of the top row to put ourselves in a position to continue. There we go. So for this row, we're going to pick up 1 silver bead and we're going to take the needle into this next sort of silver along and pull. We're going to pick up another silver bead and straight into the blue bead on the previous row. Pull. I'm now going to pick up a blue bead and take the needle into the white, and I'm going to pick up another blue bead and take the needle into the next blue along, like that. And now I'm going to add a silver, followed by another silver, and that finishes that row off. So because we're still sort of tapering in towards that point, I'm just going to take my needle up and into that silver bead, and we need to be exiting out of this silver up here. So I'm just going to continue on through the beadwork, so the next silver along, and pull, and we're going to go up to the silver at the very top there, pull through. There we go, and we're ready to continue. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up one silver bead and take the needle straight into that dark blue. And then we have a white bead. That's just going to go straight in the middle. And then we have a silver bead. That's going to just finish off this row for us. There we go. So now we're going to take our needle back up to the silver on the top again, and we're going to add one blue bead, take the needle into that white, and we're going to add a second blue bead. There we go, like that. And now we are going to pick up one silver bead, and we're just going to take that into the blue bead that we've just added, like that. And that starts the next row. So we are now going to add a blue bead just to sit at the very top of that snowflake, like that. And we're nearly finished now. So to finish the row, I've picked up a silver bead, and I'm going to take my needle into the silver that's going to be sort of below where it's sitting and pull through. There we go, give it a wiggle to get it to sit right. And now we need to just turn ourselves around so we are able to continue on. So I'm just going to go through the blue bead, so that's next in, and I'm going to go through the blue bead at the top and pull, and I'm going to go down into the white, take through, do make sure that those threads are hiding between the beads nicely, and then I'm going to go back into the blue at the top. There we go, take that through. I'm going to go through this lower silver, and then we're going to go up to the top, silver, and we're now ready to move on. So I'm just going to pick up a silver bead and take the needle straight into that blue bead. I'm going to pick up another silver bead and go into the silver bead at the end of the row. I'm then going to take my needle up into that silver bead again, moving back in towards the beadwork, and I'm going to add my final bead for the snowflake, which is another silver. So I'm just going to take my needle into the silver on the other side and pull, and that has finished our snowflake. Now, depending on what you want to do with this, will sort of determine how you finish it. You could knot one end. We've got quite a good length of thread left on each side, so you've got room to play and knot. You could simply, if you had a really small Christmas tree, you could add a loop at the top, a beaded loop. Just work your way back up to the top here by just going straight back and into it, and add a load of beads on your thread and create a beaded loop, and then work your way through to knot it. You could make a small loop and hang it from jewellery. You could maybe put a loop on each side, or if you've got tiny jump rings, you can put it in these Delica beads and make a bracelet. It really is entirely up to you with how you want to finish this, but that is your peyote stitch snowflake. So I will just cover the basics of knotting your threads in case this is relatively new to you. So I'm going to take my needle back up to the top, straight through, so that I can work my way down my snowflake to tie some knots. And I think I'm just going to work through a few beads. What am I doing with that thread? There we go. To work my way into the beadwork just a little bit. So the idea is you tie a knot around a thread, and in peyote stitch it's really hard to see your threads apart from these ones on the outer edges, and you don't really want to tie knots here because it's going to be very obvious, especially on the places where you've got your threads going on the outside. It's quite tricky to do, so you need to try and find threads that's going between the beadwork, and the way that I find that easiest is to take your needle down between the beads on one side. So if I was to go between the beads, the silver and the blue beads at the top here, I'm just going to do that with this bit off camera because it's very tricky to show you. So I've taken my needle down between the top silver bead and the blue, and I'm just going to take that through and pull until I've got a small loop of thread. And this is really hard to show because these beads are really shiny and reflective. I'm then going to go back up between the blue bead and the silver bead again, but on the other side, and I know there's a thread running straight across and into that bead. So if I pull that up and take it through, and then take my needle through that loop, I know that when I pull tight there's going to be a knot form across the thread that's running sort of between the beads that way. It's really difficult to show. And then just take your needle again then into the next bead along from where your knot's been tied and pull, and the knot will disappear into the beadwork. And after you've done that a few times, you'll be able to cut your threads off and your beading should be nice and secure. I really hope you've enjoyed that tutorial. This was a slightly different sort of format in that I've really slowed it down and sort of run through the pattern without showing you the pattern, if that makes sense. Sort of without showing you the paper pattern, that is. But yeah, there's your finished snowflake. Thanks so much for watching, and I shall see you again soon. Bye!